I am pleasantly surprised that we actually found the time this weekend to watch them
We
because
filmed and we
Likewise.
watched it.
I was telling Matt we kind of came out the gates a little bit hotter
Mhm.
after the new year than I was expecting. So for our audience, thank you for joining us again. We're going to talk with Matt from Addressing Gettysburg about the North and the South. And so we're super excited to do this. We had previously reviewed the Horse Soldiers together because we're John Wayne fans and Civil War and all that fun stuff. And that video actually did pretty well.
Yeah, and so it was while we were filming Horse Soldiers, they went there was like a military academy that these kids came from to fight them, and that was used for West Point in North and the South. And so we had brought it up filming that podcast, and then we're like, we need to review North because for Matt and I, it
Yeah.
brought back memories of childhood.
Yeah.
Not for
Yeah.
Scott, but for Matt and I.
But this is fresh eyes on the North and the South right here.
So that's what I'm interested in, and
Yeah.
very interested to know what your take on it is, being that you're the fresh eyes.
I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay. All right. Interesting.
I'll
Because
start there.
I was watching it, and like Jen said, it reminds us of our childhood. So I had a lot of warm feelings and also like sad feelings, and I'll get into that as we go. But like I remember watching it and going, I can't imagine someone new to this today enjoying this. Because it's a soap opera. First of all, it's a 12-hour soap opera, number
100%.
one. Number two, it is melodrama to the hilt. From the opening chord of the main theme in the beginning, it's just schlocky melodrama all the way.
Yeah,
But I don't know why I love it.
well, and I'll be honest, and Jen commented this a couple times as we were watching the first couple episodes that, you know, Patrick Swayze, my first question was like, was he big at the time?
No.
And so I don't think he was, but Jen said that technically Red Dawn had like just come out, but he may have been like them, you know how those things go, like you film them years before and they finally come out. So it may be kind of one of those kinds of situations. But
Red Dawn didn't make him a star either.
No,
like Red Dawn was kind of cultish too.
Yeah, that's
right?
more of a cult classic.
Right. This was in everybody's living room. It was a major television event. And that was a thing we don't have anymore because nobody watches television. But like there were 3 networks still. You know, you had cable. It existed, but not everybody had it. And cable, you know, HBO, I don't believe was really producing their own shows like they
not
do
quite.
today in 1985. And so, like, if you still wanted, I hesitate to use the word quality television, but if you still wanted a television event, it was on ABC, NBC, or CBS.
100%.
Fox wasn't even around yet.
Well,
That's all we have is 3.
And for our watchers too. So spoiler alert, like I said earlier, like I was pleasantly surprised. I actually kind of enjoyed how they set it up and the setting. And part of it is my expectations were super low. So you guys helped me set my expectations pretty low, you know, as far as telling me how cheesy it was. So that may have helped. But I remember watching the opening credits and I just was like, oh my gosh, look at all of these names that we know. Some of them huge at the time and some of them still huge now. You know, it's a young Forrest Whitaker playing a minor role and all this stuff. Elizabeth Taylor, Gene Kelly, just all these big names. And I was shocked.
You had Jimmy Stewart and you had Robert Mitchum.
Robert Mitchum.
Right?
Man.
I mean, and other people who like had their moment in the sun for a while, like Lee Horsley is in it. He's in it later. He's way down the road. And I remember him. He was on a show. I want to say it was an ABC show, or maybe CBS. It was a CBS show, but it was like after or before a show called The Young Riders on ABC, and it was called Paradise. It was a Western called Paradise, and Lee Horsley was the dad.
Yeah.
And I remember when I was the first time I watched it, my mom's like, "Oh, Lee Horsley," like she knew his name, but I had no idea who these people were, you know?
Patrick Swayze was the one who really just made it from this. I would say from all the actors that you're gonna see.
He was the
Like,
one that went yeah.
he was the one who went all the way. So between but for Matt and I, let's North and the South is a miniseries from 1985. It is the what did I say? The 7th largest miniseries of all time?
Yeah, 7th highest rated miniseries
Of
of
all
all
7.
time. Still.
Okay.
Yep. And so this is
Wait,
when TV
hold on,
shows are
sorry.
capitalizing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's North and South.
Oh, North and South. I
The
know.
North and the South is something different,
I know.
There you
and
go.
I don't
North
know,
and
I
South.
think it's a British thing. I don't even think it's an American
They
North.
did. The British did make this too. They
Oh, they
did.
did? Oh, you're
Uh-huh.
kidding.
No, they did. They
I
made their
didn't know
own
that.
version of this. I know that this book came out in 1982 and
Yeah.
like the sequel in 84, and then they capitalized on it rather quickly. And then I know the British made their version in the UK as well. I bet but it's all American, but they made it in the UK.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
but just so people know, like miniseries were a big deal. Roots 77, right? Like miniseries were huge. People went home to watch these. There were really no VCRs were just kind of coming into their own. So you came home to watch these. Like you were ready to watch these every night. And I know for you and I, Matt, like my grandma loved this. This was her thing, right? And so it brings back memories of sitting in my grandma's house and watching this with her and her like, this is so great. And oh my gosh. And I can't believe this, the scenes and the actors. And I was more like, they look like my Barbie dolls. Like that's kind of what I thought. I was like, these girls look like my Barbie dolls. Like I didn't really have much thought more than that. Um, but now that I watch it, it's so cheesy.
Yeah. So for folks who haven't seen it, maybe you've clicked on this thumbnail just because you recognize Jen's face, you recognize Matt, or you're just curious. Set in 1842, and it's basically exactly what it sounds. Set pre-Civil War. All of a sudden, you are introduced to Patrick Swayze, who I think he's riding up on a horse with full on 80s hair and all the
Yeah.
stuff. It was amazing.
You go ahead, because I have a note about that. Go ahead.
Yeah.
So I actually my very first note, one of my first notes was Patrick Swayze almost looks like the first thought in my head was it looks like he still has a little bit of baby fat like on him. Like he just looks so young. It's not
Yes.
like the super cut chiseled Patrick Swayze that we all know. Now I think he kind of goes into that. But set in 1842, Patrick Swayze's this kind of rich Southerner. He's getting ready to head off to West Point. His father and mother and family, they're kind of seeing him off. You get the feeling that he's kind of got a mind for kind of new and fresh things, but lives on a plantation in South Carolina,
South Carolina. His name is Ori Main.
Ori, Maine. So he heads off to West Point. He's going up to kind of learn to be a soldier. He says he doesn't want to be a soldier. He wants to farm, but he wants to learn. He wants to get that experience. Meets his friend, Hazard. Is it Robert?
Before that,
Sure.
though, he meets a lady.
He does meet the lady. And so that is one of the
Yeah.
next notes that I have. As he's going to the train station, he comes upon a carriage that has
Yeah.
overturned because the horse got spooked. Classic. And
Classic, right.
you come into there's this overturned carriage and these two ladies asking for help. It's a lady and her maid.
Yeah, I would say, yeah,
Yeah.
her
Slave.
companion.
Yeah.
Her slave.
Yeah,
Her
her
slave.
slave.
Her enslaved
Um,
companion.
but
Yeah.
there's a snake in there, and Patrick Swayze has to get the snake away from these two women, and her chest is popping out of this dress,
Oh,
and
the
it was just it was. I was like, okay, I can roll with this.
Well,
yeah,
yeah, I
it was total 1980s,
Yeah,
like, that stuff with the heaving bosoms, and I'm sorry, they're still in the dress after that tumble the carriage
that's what
took?
I said. I said her hat's still fine, like, nothing is up
She's
her
perfect.
skirt's be over her head, like
yeah,
And, like, okay, let's if we can go back real quick, 'cause we breezed over a lot of stuff here that's, like,
yeah.
really good. Okay, first of all, like I said before, the music in the beginning, very
Yes,
melodramatic,
great.
typical '80s, right?
Mhm.
But beautiful melody. I watched an interview before this. It was a making of, North and South,
Oh,
and they had the composer, I forget his name, but they had him on, and he was talking about how he had 3 weeks to air, and he had to write the whole score,
Oh my
and
god.
which is now for 12 hours. Now, you know, the way these things work, you have a theme and then
Yeah.
you get a
You
couple of
can
different songs and each person kind of has their own theme or whatever and you recycle them throughout and you do different versions of them. And so it's not like you're writing 5,000 songs, right? Just 5,000 versions of 4 songs.
Yeah.
But like um he played the melody on the piano just as he wrote it. And I was like, "Okay, that is a beautiful melody." And it made me sad because it's beautiful, it's lofty, it's soaring, it's all this stuff, but there's this one chord change and the one note in the melody that hits on the chord change, and musicians understand what I'm talking about. It just hits you right up the spine, and it's always at that chord where I get sad and remember little me laying on the floor in front of the TV at my grandmother's house, and everything is great. Like,
Mhm.
Uh,
I don't have a care in the world. My grandparents, they had a nice house and they took care of us, and we always had fun with them, and we were waiting for mom to come pick us up, and North and South was on, and I just, you know, the whole, Civil War-iness of it all, like, I loved it, and it always makes me sad thinking about that because that innocence that you have as a kid, you know, if you're lucky enough to be able to be an innocent kid, and I was, um, uh, yeah, that goes away once you get out into the world, you know, and you realize what a shit show the world is. And, uh, you know, and there certainly are messages in North and South, which, you know, I'm confused. I'm not confused about, but it took me a while to try to figure out where John Jakes is on everything. Is he a lost causer?
Mhm.
yeah.
And then, but as I watch it more, I realize no, like I think he's actually doing a good job at representing not only the two sides, but the nuance of the arguments of the two sides. You
Yeah,
Yeah,
know,
so
and
that piece I
for
really
sure.
appreciated as we go through episode 1 and episode
yeah,
2, right? Because they start showing the comparisons
yeah,
between what the northern, factory workers, their living conditions, which are arguably,
The
in the show,
laborers. Mhm.
laborers was worse than, according to Ori Main, worse than the slaves that he owned conditions. Now, so they were kind of that push pull there of like, oh yeah, you say, they have the option to leave whenever they want, but I think he says like an empty belly is a pretty big motivator to stay.
yeah,
Um,
But then you have
and
Ori wrestling with things that are actually happening on his plantation that
yeah,
he's not aware of because
when
he can
he's
live this blissfully. Yeah, because he's not the overseer,
yeah.
right? So
I think you nailed it right there that they did at least for these first two episodes because I haven't seen the rest yet. Um, I think they did a pretty good job of kind of walking that tightrope and giving each side's perspective. And that's part of the reason that I actually enjoyed it a little bit too was as I was watching, I thought it was going to be very heavy handed one way or the other, whatever it was.
no,
And it wasn't. It was
no.
pretty balanced
It's
and
George and Ori to me are representing the middle of the road person
yep.
mhm,
in the regions. Their sisters represent the extremists of their
yes,
region. So
yeah,
Virgilia, played by Kirstie Alley, she's the extremist abolitionist, and could they have gotten a better crazy looking woman
I
than
know.
Kirstie Alley? I mean, she
Yeah.
did that fantastically. And
She was
then,
great.
I forget her name, I just saw it and I forget her name, but the woman who plays his sister Brett, Ori's sister Brett,
Yeah. Is
uh
it
Yeah,
the blonde
oh,
girl?
no,
the
no,
dark
that's dark-haired girl, the
Dark hair
troublemaker,
girl.
and
the one
actually
with the egg on her sister
Yeah.
in the very
yeah,
Yeah. The
beginning.
dark haired girl. Yeah.
maybe
Like, what a
well,
little bee.
okay, so let's talk about okay, but anyway, we don't see her as an adult yet in episode
No,
1 and 2,
Yeah.
so
not yet.
we don't know.
Mm-mm.
Okay, so wait until we get to her as an adult, but she's wicked. She's not
Mhm.
even really she would be the counterpart to Virgilia only in that she causes stress for her family. I just thought that they did that well. Like they both have an extremist in their family, but they're both
Mhm.
middle of the road. And it's a story about their friendship, you
Mhm.
know.
Yes.
And
That's what I
it's
love about it.
yeah, it's a blossoming friendship and these men they clearly love each other and there's and this is a thing, Scott, you can probably back me up on this, and I'm sure women are the same way, but I'm not a woman, so I can't speak to that. But guys, when we have a best friend, but we have a best friend. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're like, we will do whatever we can to help him, even when it makes us look stupid, or or even when it maybe gets us in some kind of trouble.
Oh yeah.
Uh, you know, and uh, and it there's nothing like that uh, to me in the world. Even in my romantic relationships, it's not the same as my best friend, even though they're a female best friend.
Yeah.
It's a different type of best friendship
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they always tend to go at some point. But my best friend has been around for 30 years, you
Yeah.
know. And so the emotions between George and Ori, they have this huge, as we learn eventually, there's going to be like this huge difference between them when the war comes. But it's already brewing in the first
Yeah.
episode when they meet. And we
Well,
also see, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just love how they're setting up this idea of brother versus brother, of
Yeah.
people who are fighting each other, who are friends with each other, right? Because it's 20 years before the Civil War.
Mhm,
And
mhm.
as you guys are alluding to best friends, I have a best friend too, but most of the time you build that friendship going through a shared hardship together.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you've grown up together or you've overcome something together. And so these two men are overcoming West Point together. Neither of them would have made it without the other.
Right.
And because of that, they've forged something very strong between the two of them.
And
And
that only
even
gets
if
stronger
yeah,
in Mexico.
yes, and
Yeah.
it gets even stronger in Mexico. And so what we're gonna see is they're setting the story up so well that these
Yeah.
2 men are gonna have a huge conflict of difference here soon, right? And what happens and with all the heaving breasts in between, right?
I'm not gonna lie, that doesn't hurt my opinion of this show.
So 80s, man.
Oh,
So 80s.
with the carriage ride.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
okay, or the carriage accident. Yeah, classic '80s, classic, like, Hollywood, anything with horses, you know, you got the
Mhm.
runaway carriage, and then, of course, the team breaks loose from the wagon goes tumbling down a little embankment, and Ori is coming the other way, and he rides up and helps, and, immediately, he and Madeline, played by, Julie no, what's her name? Leslie Ann Down,
That's
Yeah.
hand down.
and her heaving breasts, they are smitten with each other. Not her
Yeah.
Yes.
breasts, but he and Madeline
It's a toss up
are
in that
smitten.
moment.
Yeah, they're smitten with each other, and I mean, only in movies does it work this way, right? Like, you know, they're smitten with each other, and he gives her, he puts, you know, or puts her up on the horse to give her a ride to where she needs to go, and meanwhile leaves the slave with the coachman who he goes flying off the front of the coach, right?
Yeah.
And then we go to this
Dead.
it's stuff inside with the snake and everything, and I'm like, oh, where's this guy? I totally forgot about the coachman. And then they ride off right past the coachman who's still on the ground, kind of like all
Just
dazed,
laying
trying to,
there.
nobody's helping this guy. Just
And
sad.
she's sitting side saddle. And so we talked about that too. Like, so Ori's leaving for West Point with just him
Right,
on a horse.
right.
Like, I
Well,
was like,
going to the station.
right. So he's going
Yeah.
to the station, but he's not. He has a trunk eventually. I guess that went ahead. Maybe that went ahead
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
wagon,
I
right?
would imagine
So
that would have gone
we were trying to put that story together. Like, why is he alone on a horse and he's found her and, you
Well, it's
know,
always like same in a Western when, you know, a guy's just on his horse and he's got a bedroll on the back, but when he sets up camp, he's got one of those, like, tripod kettles and, you know, he's cooking a stew on the fire. It's like, where did that come from?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was wondering that myself, and then I was also wondering what happens with the horse. Like,
mhm.
why wouldn't you have
Yeah.
somebody
'Cause
go with
you
him
yeah, that's why I told him.
and
I said,
take the horse?
if he's an enslaver, which he is, he would be
Yeah,
going with a person, right?
well,
Lee always
actually,
traveled with a person, right? You would have and they would probably bring the horses back. You'd
yeah,
ride together, and they'd bring the horses back to the plantation.
well, in the book, see, I
Mhm.
watched this behind the scenes thing, and now I know some stuff. In the book, he takes his slave to West Point.
See, and that happened a lot,
Oh,
actually.
and that did happen a lot, but they didn't put it in the movie, and I forget the reason why, but that was one of the regrets that the producer said he has. He goes, "I wish I had," because I think he didn't wanna be controversial, and so he left it out, and he goes, "But in hindsight, I wish I had left it in because it just would have lent itself to the whole division anyway, because when it
yep,
gets to West Point and they go into their barracks, there's what's his name? Ned Fisk
yep, from
Yes.
Ohio.
Who
from
doesn't
Ohio.
like him because he's from the South and he knows he's a enslaver.
And because his daddy is a tobacco farmer who
Yes,
can't
and the
afford to
labor.
hire anybody
Mhm,
because the slavers make it so that tobacco is really cheap because of the
mhm,
free labor they have.
Yep,
mhm,
And so that was another point where it's like, okay, here's another argument against slavery. It's not just humanitarian,
yep,
it's also economic. It's
yep,
hurting small farmers in the North and anywhere else in the country, right? Because you can't compete with free labor.
yep,
So I thought it was for a cheesy soap opera-y, uh, and really it's romance novel, right? Like,
yep,
that's what
mhm.
it's
totally is.
based on, right? But for all that, like, John Jakes said he really had to do a lot of research because otherwise you can't write anything believable, right? If you don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about. And so I had to kinda like, "Nah, you know what? Like, this is actually pretty good."
Yeah, and one of the things that I really liked, and I'm glad you kind of brought up to West Point, we can move on to that, was I had never known that there was this, like, amazing class of West
Yes,
Point
that's a 46.
cadets, and yeah, so this class of 46, and so just the amount of just common like, almost everybody knows these names, right? So Grant was there, McClellan, Pickett, who
Jackson.
else?
Stonewall Jackson.
Stonewall Jackson. I think you said Lee came either before or after, just before, just after.
Lee
Yeah,
was
Lee was, 1829.
yeah.
Okay.
Grant is 1943.
At
Um,
some point, he was commandant,
yeah,
Yeah.
Lee. I don't think it was then, though.
but it's that class. They're part of this class.
Yeah. Which
They are this 1846 class.
so
That's
Yeah,
so they started introducing themselves to all of their classmates like the first day or the first like when they do the drill, right? And he's like making them hold the buckets out to the side, which would be
yeah.
incredibly difficult. And then
Back there
they
just watching it.
yeah, Grant, essentially kind of saves him from the a-hole upperclassman bent.
Yes.
And then all their classmates come over and start introducing themselves and they just start listing off these names. And I was like, wait a second. I turned to Jen. I was like, is this legit? Like, were these people actually at West Point this time?
Mhm.
And this whole crew. So that I thought was really cool because one thing that I've always noticed of kind of popular like kind of historical type books or movies is they'll have a sprinkling of something that everybody knows about,
Mhm.
right? In the Da Vinci Code,
Yeah.
right? A lot of people are familiar with a couple of the things, and then the author kind of crafted the rest of the story.
Yeah.
Same
Right.
thing for war movies. So that was neat because I was like, everybody could latch onto those names. Oh, I recognize that name. Oh, I recognize that name. So that I thought was really cool.
But I wonder, though so, okay, because I wonder for somebody else who's the fresh eyes to this, if they saw that and they didn't know that it was taking place in 1846 because they didn't read the title or, they didn't know that these guys were all part of the class of '46, would they think that was, like, Hollywood just trying to throw in some recognizable names? You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
I think most folks probably would think that.
Yeah.
If I was just watching this on my own for whatever reason, right? I was traveling for work and had nothing else to watch. This is probably something I'd be like, okay.
Yeah,
Um,
I would think that too, but then you would think they would throw in Lee's name if they were doing that, really,
Right,
right?
right.
Right?
But
But
they
they
weren't.
didn't,
Yeah,
right?
because that's not what they were doing, like,
Yeah,
that was
it
history.
was legitimate. Now, they are filming this at Jefferson, Military College outside of, Natchez. Natchez like matches. I always try to remind people how to say it. So that is that's the connection to horse soldiers, and they picked that location. A lot of this is filmed around Natchez. They use, Stanton Hall is also in Natchez, uh, and then right close there, St. Francisville, Louisiana. I have a video from there. That's where the Myrtles is. That haunted
Mm,
plantation is in St. Francisville. That's where the Resolute plantation is. That's where the bad guy, when he marries her, that's his plantation. So that's insane. So they're filming around the same areas there. But Mont Royal, Patrick Swayze's plantation is actually in Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay.
yeah,
But
which is interesting because they're supposed to be neighbors, but they're filmed in like
yes,
1,000 miles away from each other.
they're very beautiful locations that still look the same.
Oh, yeah.
And they picked that place for West Point because those buildings haven't really been updated, and that's what West Point would have looked like in 1846. It
Oh,
much more like that than what it looks like today, so that's why they picked that location to film at. Um,
and the interesting thing is, that scene when Ori gets pneumonia. Well, the whole Benny Havens scene when they go to the tavern
Yeah.
and Ben. We haven't talked about Ben yet, but so that whole thing in the snow and everything like that. That is what is it? Some kind of soap that they use for fake snow.
Mhm.
And I was watching an interview with is it James Reed, the guy who plays George Hazard, and he said it was like actually Patrick Swayze said this. They both said it that it was like 100 degrees with like 9,000% humidity, and that fake snow was melting on their coats. It wasn't staying on because it was so hot, it was melting. And when he's out there, when Patrick Swayze's out there on guard duty, supposedly with pneumonia, and he looks all sweaty and everything, like
Just because
like
it's hot.
'Cause he's
it's really
sweating his
hot,
butt off.
but it
Yeah,
worked. But he had pneumonia.
yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
it's supposed to look like those winters in on the Hudson Valley up there in upstate New York, which do look like
yeah,
blizzards.
Yeah.
yeah,
So it's supposed to look like that, but you're filming it in the deep South where it's
yeah,
hot as heck.
hot as hell. Yeah. Now, when they're on the train, when they meet because
Mhm.
George helps Ori in a fight
Yep.
when he arrives in New York, I
The
guess.
gangs of New York are there to
Yeah, right.
accost him. Yeah.
And so then they make their way back up, not back, but on their way up to West Point together. George helps them out, and they're on the train and they're talking, and they make a bet. Takes out a
Mhm.
$10 bill, rips it in half, gives Ori half of it, and he says, "I bet you're going to graduate, and we're going to make sure that you do." And like that's a yeah, don't even know you, right? But that's a
Yeah.
sign of a person who's offering you true friendship there, right?
Yeah.
And sure enough, as you pointed out, they get through West Point together, and then they got the whole, "Oh yeah, I almost forgot,"
Yeah.
but somehow you had it in your pants, but you almost forgot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
4
And
years later.
yeah, 4 years later, but that's important though. The $10 in half. We're gonna see this again, so it's
Okay.
important that we note this
Yeah.
and remember it.
I'll remember that.
Yes, don't
Um,
forget it.
I also wanted to bring up too, there was something over the table in the plantations called a shoe fly.
Yeah.
That a big piece of wood that comes down
Oh,
over those plantation tables and goes back and forth. If you visit any plantation, museum house today, they usually have those there, and they'll explain what those are, and if you know anything about the South and flies and tables, that is what that's meant to do, is keep flies away from the dinner table, and an enslaved person would be pulling it. More than likely, though, they would hide that person in a closet, so you wouldn't have to see
right.
them. So it was interesting that they were out, but that was just an interesting. I like how North and the South is trying to adhere to some actual accurate history
They
here.
they did, and there was a couple points too, right? So I was a Naval Academy guy, so I hate West Point just because they're our rivals. And but the uniforms that these guys were wearing, they're the same uniforms that West Point cadets wear today.
Yeah,
Their freshman year, cadets are called plebes, just like at the Naval Academy. I was a plebe for a year, you know. So all of that stuff they mentioned the Nat Turner Rebellion
Yep, they do.
yes,
after you,
yes.
they they bring that up, and that's actually like we've been to the spot where the Nat Turner Rebellion happened, and we made a
In
video from
Virginia.
there. It's
Mhm.
smack in the middle of nowhere now.
Mhm.
Um, but I noticed this as the non-history guy that it seemed to me now it's only because I know a little bit because of what we do with our content creation, but I noticed it seemed like they were at least trying to kind of keep some of that historical accuracy in there and mentioning historic things that were going on at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Nat I wrote that in my notes that they mentioned Nat Turner because again, that is another, um angle of the pro-slavery, pro-Southern, whatever, um, argument at the time is like, well, hey, look what happened with Nat Turner. That can happen to any one of us. They'll kill him in your
Yeah.
sleep. And, I
Mhm.
mean, we did a show that hasn't come out yet though about John Brown's raid, and Nat Turner came up in that. It was a discussion at a tavern, and Nat Turner came up in that, and someone had made the point that John Brown's raid made a lot of Southerners say, "See what's
Mhm.
going on? You see what they're coming for us? They're coming for us," and would point to Nat Turner because that never died. That still was a thing in their minds and a fear. And John Brown was trying to arm slaves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, but the thing is, of course, they're misrepresenting John Brown by saying that he's trying to arm slaves for rebellion. He's trying to arm slaves to defend themselves and to get them the hell out of the South. But,
Mhm.
that's not going to come out.
Yeah, I like that they keep it they talk about John Tyler, as the vice president,
Yep.
right? And in 1945, or 18 sorry,
18.
1841. And so I like leading up to the Mexican American War. They kind of talk about Texas, right?
Yeah.
They're really are talking about the historic things that are happening
Yeah.
at the time.
Absolutely.
So I really do appreciate he did his research. Right. He did his research in the background of this romantic story between men who are best friends, romantic story between men and women, but also like a real story of America too. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
And
Texas thing was interesting because Kirstie Alley was against that, the
Mhm.
annexation of Texas, of course, right? Because she's against
Yeah.
everything.
right.
But she was against it for reasons of expansion of slavery. She didn't
Yep.
want slavery to expand.
Yep.
So, like, the characters are not caricatures of what they're representing. Like, there's actually some depth to them, and they're espousing, in her case, her beliefs, her political beliefs, according to the way people would have done back
Yeah,
then.
and even Scott had said to me, "Were people really fighting about that then?" And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, Scott." I said, "Wait." I said, "This is what causes civil war." I said, "Because I go, what will these states be? These new states into the union, what are they gonna be? And this is what's gonna start the civil war is like this conflict of labor." I said, "It's, we like to paint it as humanitarianism, but it really was a conflict of labor. And that's what was getting people so upset." Now, Chrissy Alley plays this abolitionist, and what I love about her is she makes sense to our values today,
Yeah.
but at that time she looks crazy,
Yeah.
right? And even her family paints her out as like, "I'm sorry for our daughter. I'm sorry for our crazy daughter. I'm sorry for our daughter who thinks that she can have a say and an opinion," right?
But how many families today have that kid in the family?
Sure.
They get really into something,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and they believe it with every fiber of their being to the point
Yeah.
where they're intolerable at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Yeah. They think they know everything. Their
Yes, yeah,
parents know nothing. That experience
right.
means nothing. They see the truth. They know the truth,
But
and
we'll see with,
they know how the real world works.
no, they don't. But they don't and they do, and again, like Kirstie Alley, we agree with her. She's actually fighting for something that is real.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Like,
And
we're
that's
fighting for free human beings, and as you'll see, but again, George, on the other end, the middle of the road guy,
Mhm.
he's seeing things when he goes and visits Mont Royal down south, where
yeah.
he's like, he even says, "I'm starting to see what my sister is all worked up about her." I forget how he
Yeah.
says it.
And that's what I really appreciated kind of them showing, and I assume the author wrote this in the book, was that them visiting their families in each area, right? So Ori goes up to Philadelphia, he sees the factories and he sees all this, and he's talking about, yeah, I think the South could really use this, and et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera. And he consistently says, like, hey, he's kind of talking about himself. Hey, some people think slavery is outdated, right? So he's kind of alluding to the fact that,
Right.
like, hey, if I could do this, then we wouldn't have to have that. And then
Yeah,
when
no,
George
yeah,
Hazard
good point.
comes and visits.
Yeah, because Ori is a guy looking forward for
Mhm.
the South, right? He's looking to, how can I make the future of the South better?
Yeah.
And this industrialization and mechanization, we need this down there,
Mhm.
right? But it's never going to fly down there, because then what are you going to do with all those slaves?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? And, I mean, I guess you would make them run the machine. I don't know, but like it threatens, even if it doesn't, like there's a fear of it being a threat to our way of life.
And
You know,
that is what's so interesting about the South as well, and Patrick Swayze really adheres to that decorum.
Yeah.
You're in my father's house, you're a guest in my father's house,
yeah,
right? Like, you need to act this way. Like, that's a very Southern decorum kind of thing, and
cool.
he's adhering to that. And even though he's pushing back against his dad with the way the slaves are treated, in the end, Patrick Swayze is still the son of the owner. So he really can't have as much say. And so they're kind of showing you that. I also appreciated they take you through a cotton, like they're putting cottons in the big bales, right? And
Yeah.
they walk through the area and
Oh,
you
yeah,
see
yeah,
bags of rice all over the place. And South Carolina was the biggest rice producing southern state. And so they have the rice there just to make sure it's not all cotton coming out of South Carolina. I was like, okay, way to go. Good job, people.
yeah. Well, John Jakes was saying that, I guess this is in the book. They're rice farmers in the book.
Yeah.
They have a
Oh,
rice
okay.
plantation. Um,
But most people don't associate that with the
yeah,
South, they associate the cotton.
and I
So,
think that's why for TV they made it cotton. And
yeah,
that
Gotcha.
little bit of rice was kind of a nod to the book, because
okay.
he says, like, I was debating whether to make it cotton or rice, but rice outdates cotton in South Carolina.
South
It's
Carolina.
older than cotton as a crop. Um, so he's like, I'm going to go with that to show that they're an old established family.
Yeah.
And I also they're alluding to real trauma with the enslaved, like the overseer is having his way with one of the women who is with another man, right? And
Never,
how he has to allow that to happen because of the dynamic of what enslavement meant. As a kid, I never got that. Push
no,
right over my head. I had no idea what was happening.
yeah,
And then when he gets branded on his face,
Yeah.
yes,
I don't
That
really
was
know if I
rough.
understood that either. They don't show you, maybe after the fact, but that is really harsh treatment, and they're not shying away from it. They're
no. Well,
showing
you got to
you.
remember, I don't know how many years, a handful of years. I don't even think it was 10 years before Roots came out.
Mhm.
That was a very successful. I,
77, so
I
this is about 8 years. Mhm,
okay,
mhm,
so what's the producer's name? Walper. I forget his first name. But yeah, so like, but still, Roots was out there, and Roots
mhm.
was, it
Same
was this
thing.
the slaves' view of what life was like in the South,
Mhm.
and so I think you kind of, if you didn't put something like that in there, people would be like, "What are you trying to do?"
So what one thing before we move on to when they went down to fight in Mexico and kind of moving on from there, do you know why when they graduated they were talking? So Ori and George were talking, and Ori references. He says, "Hey, I made it. I may have been second from the last to graduate, but I made it." Do you know why they didn't make him the very last in his class?
Because that was Pickett.
It was Pickett. Very good. I didn't know if you would know that. So that was one of the things I looked up about Pickett being there,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Dead
and
last.
they called him the goat. I don't know if they still call it at the Naval Academy. We called him Anchorman, right? The Anchorman of the class
Uh-huh.
is
Yeah.
at the Naval Academy. So maybe at West Point's the goat. But yeah, Pickett was the last one to graduate from his class.
Yeah. So Ori
That's
Main was
interesting.
right above him.
Yeah, or slightly smarter than Pickett.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
That's
Oh, what
funny.
did I try to tell you about the guys in the South?
Where did George graduate? Did they, name that?
I don't know what they
I don't
said. Is
Yeah, I guess
Oh,
that was
Harvard?
I don't
I
remember.
remember.
Yeah.
But I do like
He said he was in the top because they talked to him about, either being like a civil
he was the
engineer.
top 1/3, remember? Because he could have been a civil
Yeah, because
engineer,
he could have been a civil engineer, and they're like, "Oh no, I decided not to do that." And they're like, "Oh, you're gonna go
artillery.
artillery.
artillery."
And
He's
then he's
like,
like,
"No, no,
"No, I'm
no,
going
I'm gonna go
infantry."
infantry." And
Yeah,
so all the rest of the guys were like, "Oh, you're gonna be with us." So
Because
yeah.
that was a big thing That's why people went to West Point. They went to West Point for the civil engineering because
Right.
with a lot of those bridges that we have today, the Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, not Suez Canal, the Panama Canal, that's all built by West Point
Yeah, Army
graduates.
Corps of
The
Engineers.
Army Corps of Engineers, they've built all the levees, so much on the Mississippi here. That's built by the Army Corps of Engineers. So if you are in the top of your class at West Point, you become those engineers. And so much was done by those people. That's what they're trying to allude to, how smart he was. But
Yeah, but George turns it down and he goes off and fights with his friends down in Mexico.
But I will say Patrick Swayze gives us one move. He gives us a spin move in his sword
Oh, that's
training.
right. When he's fighting with the sword.
I was like, oh, you get to see a little dancing skill there. Yes.
yeah.
So he is showing us.
Yeah. You could definitely throughout the whole thing, and even later on in the war, you definitely get a sense of where Patrick Swayze's going with his career. Like you got little glimpses of Dirty Dancing in there. You know, you got a little bit of Ghost in there. You got all of the things that we all grew to love about Patrick. So you got some Roadhouse in there, some of those spin kicks that he does. Like, you know, you got a little bit of everything in there that, and he probably, well, obviously he had no idea what he was going to be.
He had no idea, but the romance kind of continued on, right? So they were down in Mexico, and obviously one of the big through lines for this, for folks who haven't seen it, and if you haven't seen it, congrats on making it to this point in the podcast. You should go watch it.
Most people have probably seen it.
But yeah, I imagine most folks watching this have seen this.
But rewatch it if you've already seen it. Rewatch it listening
like
to
I said, I've watched episode 1 and 2. I was pleasantly surprised at how much I enjoyed them. I have not seen the rest yet, so I'll be watching those over the next week or two before the next time we record. But they're down in Mexico, and the through line for him is he's lost this love, right? The woman he loved, you know, got married off to someone else because her father was hiding his letters, and so they never communicated while he was at West Point.
So
Bent, you know, the antagonist at school, I don't think he was involved in that piece of it, but they finally got him kicked out. So,
but you mentioned Bent just now, and then we talked about the sword fighting, and there was another allusion to Bent. But we really have to introduce Bent because he is the villain throughout the series. He's great.
Yeah.
I watched an interview with him this afternoon. I had nothing to do. He Elkanah Bent, what a name.
Yeah.
Right? He's got this really like crazy Southern accent, sa.
Yeah.
He always says, sa.
Is it Georgia? Is that where he's supposed to be from?
Georgia.
Georgia.
Yeah.
He's a cadet corporal at West Point, and he just has it in for Ori and George from the moment they show up, and he picks on them every chance they get, or he gets, and he just doesn't like them and gives them a hard time about everything. But you know, somehow through all these twists and turns that you'll just have to go and watch to find out, they get him kicked out of West Point. And he goes blackmail Senator Edwards, played by Gene Kelly.
Ohio.
I didn't even recognize him.
He didn't recognize him. I said, that's Gene Kelly right there.
He's old. I just saw it in his eyes. You could hear it a little bit in his voice.
You could hear the voice a little bit.
Yeah.
So the thing that's fascinating about North and South to me is it has, you know, stars of the day, stars of yesterday,
yes,
and stars of tomorrow.
Yes.
Of course, the stars of tomorrow, they couldn't have known at the time, but we do now in hindsight. But the stars of yesterday, you got Elizabeth Taylor, Gene Kelly, Robert Mitchum, Jimmy Stewart. There's others that I'm not remembering at the moment, but we'll see later on. You know, it's like, I remember them as little kids, right? Well, as I was a little kid, I remember them as the old Hollywood people, not old Hollywood, but they were old Hollywood people.
Yep.
And I didn't realize they were once young men and women with, you know, careers, and they were like hot stars at the time for their generation. I didn't get that stuff at, you know, 8 years old or whatever I was. So, you know, but now to watch it, because they're all dead.
Yes.
Not one of those classic people are alive. Patrick Swayze's dead. A lot of the other people are dead. And, that's the thing about movies that to me is just fascinating is, like, they're a time capsule,
Mhm.
and that's the only way for us to know people that lived before us and died before we ever, you know well, we're never gonna meet them, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And, it's weird, but it's also really a cool thing because we get to see what these people were like when they acted. Um, I don't know. I just think it's really cool that, Gene Kelly, the
Yeah.
dancer. I don't know anything. Well, he was singing in the rain, right?
Singing in
Yeah.
the
Oh
Rain.
yeah.
Mhm. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
He did
I
tons of
could
stuff.
I couldn't give 2
American in Paris.
Scott, I know you're a dancer, and that's why you like Gene Kelly, but, like,
Love Gene
I
Kelly.
am very clumsy.
It's more like the gymnast side, not the dancing
So,
side.
so
Oh,
to me growing up, so my mom always forced us to watch musicals.
okay,
I knew Fred Astaire and Gene Kelly
okay.
pretty early, and I always kind of admired Fred Astaire because he was kind of the classic dancer, but Gene Kelly was much more gymnastic in what he did. He was much more athletic as far as kind of what he did, and that always stuck with me as a kid, especially as a young gymnast. But yeah,
That
I
that's
thought that was so fun
funny
to see.
that's funny you say that because I'm a huge Dean Martin fan, right?
Mm.
One year, many Christmases ago, my sister and brother-in-law got me a box set of, like, the best the Dean Martin show.
Oh,
Mhm.
cool.
Yeah.
His director, Greg something or other, would, like, introduce the clips and talk, behind the scenes stuff, and he compared Dean and Frank Sinatra to Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire.
Sure.
He goes, "Frank, Fred Astaire, they're
Yep.
precise.
Yep.
They're right on the note and everything like that. Dean and, Gene Kelly, they're like, "Hey," they're
Yeah,
just
play
they
around a little
feel
more.
it. They play by
Mhm.
feel,
Yep.
Mhm.
that was the difference between them, so
Gene Kelly is playing the senator from Ohio who has an illegitimate son,
Yeah.
right? So
thank
not the best role to play, but he's
No,
playing
and
it anyway because he knows how big this miniseries is probably gonna be,
probably he needed the
right?
money,
And then he's getting his son back into the military. Like,
and his
he's
son is
being
Al Bent. His you got
yeah,
that's the point, yeah.
his illegitimate son, like, his illegitimate son is also, um, blackmailing
Psych
him and so
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah,
like, I'll tell the truth if you don't get me back in." So he's like,
I'll tell
"Okay."
everybody that I'm your illegitimate son, and
Yeah.
yeah, and I'm a bastard. And
And
he
now
is.
He is. He
he is,
is.
and that's kind of that's the other piece that I liked about this story is because you kind of when he gets kicked out of West Point, when Ben gets kicked out, um, like okay, we'll probably see this guy in the future because they lay that on pretty thick, but you don't know how. And all of a sudden, it cut to a scene, a little while later after other stuff happens, and he's talking to this senator, and then he talks about, hey, just give me a commission and I'll leave you alone. You're like, oh no, this is how he comes back into the story.
Yeah.
He's going to end up as some officer that's higher ranking than these other two, and who knows what's going to happen.
Oh,
Yeah. And we get
yeah.
to see.
Yeah, we see him in Mexico.
You just wait. You just
Yeah,
Mexico is the
It's gonna get
least of their
yeah.
problems with
yeah,
Bent.
man. And so for the Mexico War, I mean, was kind of what they were portraying down there, was that relatively accurate as far as like what's happening and all that stuff? I mean, I would assume that it is because everything that we've seen, at least thus far, is they've been trying to maintain some historical
Well, you get to
accuracy.
see a lot of good stunts. I will say the stuntmen really were like, "This is our moment,"
There are some
before we get
serious
to the
horse
Civil War
falls.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
They're
I could
flipping
draw a
over things
bridge.
into the yeah, flipping into the water,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Patrick Swayze's acting, I think he's doing pretty good. Like, I'm with Patrick Swayze on this. He's doing a good job. Like, he's pulling me through. He's definitely by this time his love is remarried. He's still so in love with her, and there's like he's so forlorn that he's all in on being
Yeah.
the first one out
Got a
there.
death
He's
wish.
got a death wish. So they really
Yeah,
do a good job of showing that, right? Like,
nothing
I'm going, I'll be the first one because he'd rather die. Um, and you get to see the graphicness of his leg wound, which we meet Robert Mitchum. Then he plays the doctor
Yeah, I'm the
who
surgeon.
could amputate his leg, decides not to. So we get to allude to all of this amputation that's going to start happening at this time. This is how doctors are going to alleviate any wounds so they don't get gangrene. They just cut them off. Um, but they tell Patrick Swayze he's just going to take forever to recover. He won't be able to use the leg, but we won't take the leg.
well,
And so that's kind
in the book, he loses his arm.
of okay.
Oh,
And By the way, the producer of Roots and North and South is David Wolper.
Okay.
Walper. So same person.
Same person. And they decided that this was the only thing that John Jakes and them had an argument about. Was they decided that we're not going to have him lose his arm because then I'm going to have this 12-hour miniseries where 10 of the hours he's walking around with his arm behind his back, and everybody in the audience is going, where do they put his arm? Where do they put his, and they're going to be distracted by that.
Yeah.
So we'll give him a leg wound that he can't heal from, and that'll plague him the rest of his days.
Yeah, but I will say, so Patrick Swayze, so she got married to the other man because her father had Patrick Swayze's love, the girl he found who overturned in the wagon. She's from New Orleans. They really allude to that with her enslaved woman who speaks in that kind of Jamaican tongue, right?
But yeah.
Yeah, the Creole, this Creole kind of connection. So she marries a man her father had kind of put in place for her that was well-to-do. He's very abusive and not a nice guy, not nice to her. And so she feels very trapped in her marriage. Patrick Swayze can't forget her. And it's so hilarious. She's like, you must forget me. I can't forget you. Don't forget me. Oh, I'm going to try to forget you.
Meeting up at the
But I
abandoned
can't
church.
forget you. Don't forget me. It's like you two don't know what the heck is going on here, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
so they're the same age,
Yeah.
Ori and Madeline.
Mhm.
Lamont, played by David Carradine, is an old man or
Yes.
a middle-aged man, okay? But he's a good choice as arranged by the father, like you said. And Ori's off at West Point in the war, and the letters get intercepted, and so she goes off and marries him because she thought Ori had stopped writing her, just like he thought the same about her. So, but because of the same age and because they're truly in love with each other, they plan to meet at this old burnt-out church because
Right.
they're just laying around everywhere.
And
These
he
churches.
rides up in a cape. He's looking all
yeah.
dapper. He
Yeah,
looks
I mean,
amazing.
He does. He does.
So
And
good.
so they go in to meet at the church, and they do it like it's like their place, and I forget what they say in the first one. It might be this time where she says, let's see. Here's what I wrote in my notes. Ori finds Madeline at the church. So I guess they must have met or planned to meet. I might have missed that. Madeline says she's there to tell him they can no longer see each other, just like the guys on To Catch a Predator. Ori ain't buying it, just like Chris Hansen. They kiss. They kiss,
Their
but she's
kissing is so awkward. Their kissing is so, I have to say, their kissing is the most awkward.
It was a little awkward.
okay. I noticed this too because you used to not kiss with tongue in Hollywood. Okay, I think 80s they started flirting with it. The problem was they stopped. You can see their tongues coming, but they don't actually go into the other person's mouth. They just lick the inside of their own lips with them, and it's this weird. It's this weird like it's disgusting.
So weird.
It was so awkward. I was like,
Yeah,
they
and
look
I don't
like
care that it's two
teenagers who
good-looking
never
people
kissed
doing it.
before.
It's ugly and stupid and gross. Like it's nasty.
Yeah.
So she said they kiss, but she stops him and she leaves and she says, "Forget me, Ori. It's the only way." And George and Ori argue over slavery again.
Yes. But then it's like, she's like, don't forget me. I can't stop thinking about him.
Well, and she
Give him this note. I have to see him.
And I even told Jen from the very beginning, she has that very soap opera look. And Jen was like, well, she actually was in a soap opera later on in her career, right? She was
What
on
one?
for
Bold and the Beautiful
Okay.
for a long time.
Yeah. So she has that look, right? If you're listening to this podcast, like she's got that very classic 80s soap opera, beautiful woman, beautiful look. And so this is kind of, again, one of the constant through lines is not only is this love story between Ori and her, but as long as, everything else that's happening. And then when George finally meets, his first love interest, his first true love interest, because when you first meet George in New York, he's got two girls, one in each arm, and he's kissing each girl before he jumps out and goes and fights with Ori for the New York street gang. And then fast forward a few years,
he has the hooker set up too at West Point.
yeah, that's right.
He knows
Doing the laundry. So
The laundry floor, yes.
yeah. She does the laundry for everybody around here. But fast forward, they're finally in Mexico.
Yeah.
And then
He meets Constance Flynn.
Robert Mitchum. He's there with his daughter, and his daughter is there. Like, they meets her at a dance, and it's one of those things. He sees her across the dance floor. He doesn't want to be there because Ori's all down in the dumps, and just you can tell he's just in a really bad spot because he's injured and been bedridden for 6 months.
Yeah,
and
his lady is married to someone else.
Married to someone else.
He's
Doesn't
all
have his
depressed.
leg. And then
That is the worst. That is the worst feeling in the world.
Oh, heartbreak?
Well, not heartbreak, but losing someone to someone else.
Oh yeah.
Like, that is the worst feeling because you can't see them the same way, and it's hard to imagine this person you love, who you thought loved you back, can give that to somebody else. So, like, that whole time with Ori, I'm like, God, man, because I've been in Ori's shoes in that situation more times than not in my lifetime. And so
But the truth is, she doesn't want to be with her husband either, right? So that's even worse, right? It's not like she's happy. She's like, I'm miserable. I was like, girl, you should just be with Ori. Like, what does it matter? Like, be with Ori and
it's that time
on the side. And even if you got pregnant, you'd be like, well, I got pregnant with my husband. Like, what the heck? Like,
Right.
like, I know, right? Here I am for morals.
Yeah. I commented to Jenn. I commented to Jenn when George started. They started showing scenes with him and I forget
Constance Flynn.
Constance, yes, with Constance, and I was like, Jenn, I think she's way more beautiful than Ori's girl. And I kind of asked her, I was like, hey, did anything else happen with these two? Because these are like the actors playing, George Hazard and Constance. I mean, they are both good look. That's a good
James
looking
Reed
couple right
and
there.
Wendy Kilborn, they actually got married in real life.
So
they got married
awesome.
in 88. So 3 years after this, they got married. They're still married today. They have 3 kids. So they probably remember this miniseries as where we met.
This is how mom and dad met
and fell in love.
I didn't know that, but the other Hazard brother, Stanley, the guy from Star Trek.
number 2.
Oh yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He married the girl who plays Ori's little blonde sister, not the child, the adult who plays
the adult. He marries her. Lots of love happening. So I will say when George and Constance kiss, you can tell they really do love each other. Well, their kisses are real.
So theirs was a little less awkward, but I wrote down one line that he said to her when he was doing the whole proposal, right? He's kind of stumbling through it. She's like, is this a proposal? He said, yes, essentially, will you marry me? And then they kind of have the back and forth. And when she finally tells him, she's like, I fell in love with you, that first night on the dance floor. And I loved his line. It just made me laugh. And he goes, well, was it my face or the uniform? I just love the bull, cockiness.
Yeah,
that was awesome. That's a great writer line right there.
Yeah, it was. But doesn't she say to him, it was the look on your face when the other officer cut in?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. It was that was the moment where she knew. Yeah, that's all that stuff is very relatable, especially when you're young. Like it reminds you of when you were young and falling in love, and how all new and fresh and innocent it was, and how nice it is. And I think they did a good job, all the actors playing that, except for when Patrick Swayze and what's her face kiss. That's awkward. But as a little boy watching this, I had a crush on every one of the women.
Oh, sure.
But Madeline above all. Now as an adult, Kirstie Alley's the fox. No.
Yeah.
As an adult, it's Constance who is the more attractive one because she is attainable.
Yeah.
Madeline is not attainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Patrick Swayze
seems like a headache.
Patrick Swayze can't even get her. Okay?
I know.
That's how you know someone's unattainable.
So I'm going to be able to get Madeline. but Constance is a down-to-earth Irish Catholic girl,
Yep.
right? And,
Yep. R
has a good father.
Robert
See
Mitchum, who's going back to the famine rebellion in Ireland. He's like,
Yeah.
"I'm going back to Ireland. It's 1848, and this is when
right,
the famine rebellion's happening." So again, they're adhering to history still. So I thought that was cool.
yeah,
Yeah, it
yeah,
was good, and one of the other things that I liked about some of their time there in Mexico was they made a reference to Doubleday. So I don't know if you caught that.
With the
I did
baseball?
remember okay, go
We
ahead.
wrote
Go
that yeah, so we wrote that down because they were walking when he finally gets Ori up out of bed, and they're kinda walking around, and that's one of the things they're talking about to each other. They say, like, "Do you think this game that Doubleday, created is ever gonna take hold?" And
right,
you see these guys playing some, like, stickball version of baseball. And for those who don't know, Abner Doubleday is allegedly created baseball.
well,
Now
I have
that's
some
not
notes on
It's not
that's
true.
not necessarily true, but we've been to his grave, right? So that Doubleday is actually buried in Arlington National Cemetery,
And there's lots of baseballs
and
in front of
there's
the
always baseballs in front of his grave, and it was really cool to see that, and then to see this reference here.
well, so I knew that because we did a show on baseball in the Civil War, and we set the record straight on that, but I couldn't remember the details because I didn't host it. I let somebody else host it because I find sports to be completely boring, and so fell asleep in the back while they did the show. So I had to look it up. He did not, as you point out. It was a story created for the Baseball Hall of Fame in 1907 by the Mills Commission, which sought to establish Doubleday sought to establish baseball as a purely American sport. And how more American could it be than it comes out of the United States Army?
Mhm.
The story became a marketing ploy to promote the Hall of Fame.
Again, I appreciated that as part of them kind of just dropping these fun historical facts that people can latch on to. Um, it
We
was a
did
Well,
fun one.
notice that the American flag at
Dance party.
the dance in the Mexican gala that he goes to, it's a 48 star flag.
oh, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Oh,
we're like,
come on, guys. Well, you had mentioned the West Point uniforms before, and I googled, how accurate are the uniforms in North and South, and it said that it's a pretty good mix.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it pointed out the West Point uniforms as being pretty damn close, like, probably out of all the uniforms depicted, that's the closest one. Um, and then he said, but as we get to the Civil War, it's more Hollywood costuming
Mm,
versions of the uniforms, because they're always neat and clean and, no
the
holes, there's no
hodgepodge. Yeah,
Yeah.
fading.
yeah.
They're not dirty.
Not dirty, but they're rolling around in the dirt and, all that, and as
Mhm.
you'll find out as we get into further episodes, Patrick Swayze's hair is always coiffed no matter what. He's rough and tumbling, getting in fights and everything. He gets up and his hair is still perfect. He gets back, somebody punches him. He's like, "Oh, but his hair is staying in shape." And it's very lucky to have a head of hair like that. But
Yes,
so still in Mexico, George resigns his commission.
Yes, that's right.
yes.
And
That's
then
right.
he goes to Elkanah Bent, who's a captain, and it was his order that got Ori's leg all messed up.
Yep.
And he goes as a civilian to Elkanah Bent, who's whoring around with a couple of girls, and Bent is like, "You are disgusting, sir, and you're not even in uniform." And he's like, "I'm glad you noticed because now I can give you one of these." And he
Yep.
punches him in the face,
That's great.
and they get into a big fight. And he says, "If you ever come after me or my friend Ori Main again, I will kill you," or something
Yep.
like
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
and uh and then that is the end of Elkanah Bent.
Well,
Or
we loved how
Or
they
is it?
or
went
is it?
or is it? We loved how they went for it, fighting, and the town just kinda stood around and watched. It was kinda
Oh, yeah.
like, "This is our entertainment. This
Yeah.
happens all the time."
Well, that's what they do today.
Yeah.
They still get
It's
their phones
true.
out
That's
and take a
true.
video.
Yeah. Yeah,
People
yeah.
get murdered.
No,
So,
I enjoyed these these
Yes.
these 2 episodes,
They do a lot
and
of good
they
foreshadowing. It
do.
is, like you said, it's soap opera-esque, it's dramatic acting. I do think Patrick Swayze's acting is very good in it. I do think other people are a little cheesier, but I am enjoying it.
Yeah, I think, Swayze and James Reed
Mhm.
as the leads are very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That it's believable even when they have to deliver a corny, romantic, mushy line, I can accept it.
Yeah.
Um, but Patrick Swayze in particular, though, because he's more of a hothead than George is, and, but in many ways, he's like what I think he does really well is when he's lovesick about Madeline, he's like a little boy. Like, he
Yeah.
Mhm.
reminds me of a little boy,
Yeah.
and he kind of is almost whiny in some ways, except when he's, wounded and they're walking around and he's wounded and heartsick, and George is like, because he says, "Oh, this leg which will never get better," and he goes, "But it won't get worse, Ori." And
Yeah.
Yeah.
he's just like, "Well, thank you for that comforting," whatever. And there he's seen, and then he's drinking straight whiskey, and George is
Yeah.
like, "I've never seen you drink straight whiskey before."
Mhm.
Yeah, I did like, and you had mentioned this to kind of tie this back to something you said in the very beginning, them showing kind of how these two men who are truly close, like practically brothers, and George goes up there and says, I kind of was able to pull him out of this depression that he's in and say, hey, I want you to stand next to me. I want you to be my best man. And you can see, and that's why I thought Patrick Swayze did a great job acting too. You can see the expression on his face, and you can
Yeah,
see it. He finally smiles probably for the first time in 6 to 9 months, right?
right.
And he says, I would love to stand next to you. And I really like that because that is exactly what a best friend would do. That is exactly
Absolutely.
what you would expect. And that's exactly what you hoped, right? As a watcher, as me, fresh eyes. And so that moment just really was heartwarming to me and made me smile. And then you see him kind of come back out of this dark, deep hole that Ori Main's been in, and he kind of finally starts becoming himself a little bit again after that.
Yeah.
And I thought was really cool, showing that true closeness of the two brothers, really, um, in
He's
in in,
genuinely
in doing
happy
that.
for his friend, like,
Yeah,
you know? I've only been genuinely happy for other people a handful of times in my life, like, to the point like, I've always been like, "Oh, that's good for you," and, like, I've always done that,
Mhm.
but where I'm, like, elated for
yeah,
somebody else, handful of times, and it is probably the best feeling that you could have, to be
It is.
happy, like, truly happy for somebody else,
yeah,
because
Yeah.
it's like a totally selfless, and it proved to me that I'm not as selfish as I think I am, because I was
Oh.
I was able to do that for other people, and, like, involuntarily, like, it just came over me, and it was
Mhm.
a nice feeling, and so, yeah, you're right, and it's funny because I just rewatched episode 2, like, from the halfway mark, I rewatched that today as well, and at that part, I had the same feelings and thoughts that you had, Scott, because you're right. First of all, it's 2 things a best friend would do. Come like, travel that distance to pull you out of your slump
Yeah.
because he knows better of you. He knows that
yeah,
you're
Mhm.
better than that, and he knows that you're wasting a lot of great things. And then, in turn, Patrick Swayze can get out of his funk because a good thing is happening for to his friend,
yeah,
and his friend wants him to be right there with him. That
Mhm.
that is a good two-way street right there,
Yeah.
yeah.
which
No,
makes the later parts all the more heartbreaking when
oh
they're
yeah,
on.
Yes. So here we
I know they're
go.
setting me up for the fall. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh no, this is so. I feel so good right now. Please,
Yeah, so here
please,
we
Yeah,
are. We're the
please
end of
don't do it.
episode 2. We're about 10 years before the Civil War, right? So everyone's
right,
kind of coupling up and having children. They're gonna get kind of a little bit older and mature, right? But they're gonna be seasoned, military men who are gonna be experienced men now. They're probably gonna be fathers at some point, right? And now Civil War is gonna set in,
yeah,
right? So I love that it's these 2 men. And
yeah.
I can't wait to see where the story takes us. So
Well,
Yeah,
it's we keep kinda making fun of the romance of it and the melodrama, between the main characters and the women. Well, all the men and women, because there's more than two relationships going on. But it also is a bromance film.
It's a
Oh yeah.
bromance. Mhm.
Like these guys, and you'll see later in the war. This isn't going to be a big spoiler, but there is a point in the war where they happen upon each other,
Yeah.
and they have like a truce type of a catch-up session, you
Yeah.
know, and you can feel the sorrow when they have to go back to the lines, and but and I think we all, I mean, not as extreme as Civil War, but we all have relationships, and sometimes life takes us in different paths, and we're not necessarily adversaries or enemies, but we don't talk anymore. But
Yeah.
there's that unexpected meeting with each other where it's like you just picked up from yesterday,
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
and we've all got friends like that, maybe more than one
Oh,
if we're
yeah.
lucky. And I think so. That's why I say, like, you know, probably everybody could have enjoyed that back in 1985. The women for all the heaving bosoms, and the dresses, and the men for the heaving bosoms.
And the kisses all
But
over the face.
also, yeah, but also the women for the romance and the men for the bromance. Because
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
guarantee you, most men, Scott, you probably were doing this too. I know I do it. I think of my best friend when I'm watching that. And would
Mhm.
I be able to be on opposing sides of a war against my best friend?
Yeah, I think that's fantastic foreshadowing for us and our next two episodes. For those watching and listening, if you guys enjoyed our conversation, our take on this, we are going to do the next two episodes. So if you watch this and those videos are already out, trust me, I'm going to link the next video here at the end of this one. Stay tuned with us to hear a little bit more about what happens next in North and South in episodes 3 and 4 of this miniseries. So Matt, thank you again for joining us today. And for those watching and listening, stay tuned for the next episode because it's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, I hope you're inspired to call your bromance or call your loved ones for this Valentine's Day. I hope we inspired you with all the love that is being felt in these first two
Happy
episodes.
Valentine's.
All right. Well, for those listening, we'll talk to you guys next time.
Thank you.
For having me, guys.
This has been a Walk with History production. Walk with History is created and hosted by me, Scott Benny. Episode researched by Jennifer Benny. Check out the show notes for links and references mentioned in this episode. Talk with History is supported by our community at thehistoryroadtrip.com. Our eternal thanks go out to our lifetime members to help keep us going. Thank you to Doug Liberty, Larry Myers, Patrick Benny, Gail Cooper, Christy Coates, Calvin Gifford, Courtney Sanini, Gene Noah, Larry Mitchell, Tommy Anderson, Susan Sulis, Bruce Lynch, Dino Garner, Mark Barrett, Don Kennedy, and John Simpson. Make sure you hit that follow button in that podcast player, and we'll talk to you next time.